The desert stretched endlessly under a pale blue sky, the air shimmering with heat waves that danced off the cracked earth. Inside the Nevada Research Facility, the atmosphere was anything but tranquil. Dr. Michael Harrington hunched over a console, his brow furrowed as streams of incomprehensible data scrolled across the screen. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the controls, fine-tuning the array of satellite feeds that had captured the anomaly. "It's repeating," he murmured, almost to himself. Major Jack Reynolds, standing stiffly with arms crossed, glanced at the screen. His square jaw was set, his gray-green eyes sharp and unyielding. "Repeating what? Exactly? It looks like gibberish to me." "It's not gibberish," Harrington replied, his voice tinged with exasperation. "It's structured, purposeful, and it's not meant for us." Across the room, Elliot Chong swiveled in his chair, his perpetually disheveled black hair falling into his eyes. "Wait, not meant for us? You're saying we intercepted alien spam?" His grin was boyish, but his fingers never left the keyboard, where he was running a decryption program on the signal. "It's a directed transmission," Harrington said, ignoring the sarcasm. "It wasn't aimed at Earth. Our deep space array just happened to pick it up because of its intensity. Whoever, or whatever, sent this was targeting a star system over 10 light-years away." Reynolds shifted his weight, the gleaming insignia on his uniform catching the overhead lights. "And we're sure this isn't some elaborate prank or an Earth-based signal bounce." "It's not human," Harrington said firmly. "The frequencies, the patterns, nothing matches any known source." "Then why risk answering?" Reynolds asked, his tone laden with skepticism. Before Harrington could respond, the door hissed open, and Travis Brick Jefferson strode in, wiping grease-streaked hands on his work pants. The scent of burnt circuitry followed him like a cloud. "You called me up from the lab for this?" he asked, gesturing at the screen. "If it doesn't blow up or need welding, I don't see how I fit in." "You'll fit in when this thing requires hardware fixes," Elliot quipped without looking up. Jefferson snorted. "Figures." Derek Summers entered last, a leather-bound notebook in hand, the edges of its pages frayed from use. His sharp, analytical gaze swept over the group as he spoke. "If the signal isn't meant for us, there's a possibility it could pose a threat, indirectly or otherwise. Have we considered its implications from a cultural standpoint?" Harrington nodded. "That's why I called you in. Whatever this is, it's using a form of communication we've never encountered before. If it's a distress signal, ignoring it could mean turning our backs on a life form in need. If it's a trap, well, we'll find out." Elliot leaned back, his chair creaking. "I've been working on a preliminary analysis. It's got repeating segments, loops, like it's trying to emphasize something. But it's incomplete, like parts of it are scrambled or missing." Reynolds frowned. "Or encrypted, possibly," Elliot conceded. "Or maybe degraded over time. If it's traveled light years, who knows what kind of interference it's encountered." The room fell silent, the weight of the discovery settling on them. For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the computers. Harrington broke the silence. "We have a responsibility to investigate this. We're scientists, explorers. If we don't try to understand what's out there, then who will?" Jefferson chuckled dryly. "You make it sound noble. Let's not forget that if we screw this up, we might paint a giant target on Earth. That's why we proceed carefully," Harrington said. "We'll craft a response. Simple, mathematical, something unmistakably artificial but not threatening. If we're lucky, it'll establish a basic dialogue." Summers tilted his head. "And if we're unlucky, then we deal with it," Reynolds said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The team spent hours working in unison, each man leveraging his expertise. Harrington drafted the response, meticulously crafting sequences that mirrored the signal structure. Elliot wrote the code to encode it, ensuring it would be compatible with the transmission protocols of the array. Jefferson oversaw the technical adjustments to the equipment, his hands moving with practiced precision as he recalibrated the uplink. Summers scrutinized every decision, offering insights into potential misinterpretations, while Reynolds remained a watchful sentinel, weighing the risks. By the time they were ready, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the desert in shadows. The tension in the room was palpable as Harrington placed his hand on the console, his finger hovering over the send command. "This is it," he said. "Once we transmit, there's no taking it back." Reynolds nodded. "Do it?" The room fell silent as Harrington pressed a button. A soft chime confirmed the transmission had been sent, the data speeding toward its unknown recipient across the vastness of space. Seconds ticked by, then minutes. The team exchanged uneasy glances, the stillness broken only by the occasional beeps of the monitoring systems. Suddenly, an alert blared. The main screen lit up with a cascade of new data. Something was responding. "What the hell is that?" Jefferson asked, his voice low but urgent. Elliot's hands flew over his keyboard. "Incoming energy signal. Oh no! It's locking onto us. Locking onto us how?" Reynolds demanded, his voice sharp. Before anyone could answer, the facility trembled. Lights flickered and a low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Outside, the night sky was illuminated by a beam of brilliant, otherworldly light descending from the heavens. Harrington stared at the screen, his expression a mixture of awe and terror. "We've been noticed." The hum reached a crescendo, and with a blinding flash, the beam vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. The team stood frozen, their minds racing to comprehend what had just happened. Reynolds broke the silence, his voice steady but grim. "Looks like we just made first contact. Let's hope it's the kind we can survive." The artifact hovered over the desert like a monument from another reality. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent glow, shifting colors that defied the human eye's ability to track them. It was vast, towering above the sagebrush and rocky outcroppings, and its presence sent a ripple of unease through the facility's command center. Major Reynolds stood at the observation window, his arms crossed and his face a mask of quiet calculation. "Any chance it's a glorified weather balloon?" he asked, though his tone betrayed no real hope. Jefferson snorted from his station. "If it is, I want to meet the guy who built it. That thing's putting out energy signatures I've never seen before. It's practically humming with power." Dr. Harrington paced near the main console, his mind racing. "This artifact, it's a response, but it's also a statement. Whoever sent the original signal wants us to engage with it. This isn't just communication. It's an invitation or a test. Test or not, it's interfering with every system we have," Chong said, his hands flying across his keyboard. "I've got satellite feeds glitching, comms going haywire, and half the facility's sensors are down. This thing's throwing out some kind of electromagnetic field." Summers leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data streaming across his monitor. "The patterns are consistent with the original signal. It's not random interference. It's trying to tell us something. We need to decode this. Fast. Or shut it down," Reynolds said, turning to face the group. "This artifact is a potential threat, and we can't ignore that. If it destabilizes or reacts unpredictably, it could take out half the state." Harrington shook his head. "We don't know that. Destroying it could be the worst possible move. If this is alien technology, it's far beyond anything we've encountered. We need to understand it before we act." Reynolds' jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The tension in the room was palpable, a collision of minds and priorities. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. Chong, muttering to himself as he sifted through the artifact's electromagnetic output, suddenly froze. "Wait, there's a pattern in the interference. It's reactive, like it's responding to our systems." Harrington rushed to his side. "Reactive how?" Chong pointed to the screen. "Look here. Every time one of our systems pings it, the artifact sends back a modified version of the ping. It's like a handshake protocol, but way more advanced. It's trying to interface with us." Jefferson pushed back from his station. "Well, If it wants to talk, maybe we should stop poking it like amateurs. I've got some diagnostic tools that might give us a clearer picture. Assuming it doesn't fry them. Minutes later, Jefferson's equipment was deployed to the artifact's perimeter, tethered to the facility by an array of cables and remote controls. The team watched as the diagnostics began feeding data into their systems, revealing intricate layers of the artifact's structure. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Jefferson said, his voice tinged with awe. "This thing's not just a machine. It's modular, constantly reconfiguring itself, like it's alive." Summers spoke up, his tone thoughtful. "If it's modular, it might be designed for repair or assembly. What if this artifact is part of a larger network?" "That would explain the original signal," Harrington said, nodding. "It could be a relay, a piece of interstellar infrastructure. But why send it here?" Reynolds, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Maybe it didn't. Maybe we triggered this by responding to the signal. This artifact might have been dormant, waiting for a specific input." The weight of his words settled over the group. Before they could process the implications, alarms blared. The artifact's energy output spiked, its surface shifting into a cascade of blinding white light. In an instant, the facility's power systems faltered, plunging the room into semi-darkness as backup generators kicked in. "Whatever it's doing, it's not waiting for our permission," Chong shouted, his face illuminated by the glow of his monitor. Jefferson barked into a headset, coordinating with his technicians. "We've got a spike in thermal output. This thing's heating up fast. If it keeps climbing, it's going to blow." Reynolds grabbed the nearest comm unit. "Evacuate non-essential personnel. Now." "No," Harrington said sharply. "We can stabilize this. It's responding to us. We just need to figure out how." "And what if we don't?" Reynolds shot back. Summers interjected, his voice cutting through the chaos. "The patterns, look at the timing. The artifact's energy output matches the intervals of our diagnostic pings. We're feeding it too much input, and it's overloading." Harrington's eyes lit up. "If that's true, we can modulate the signal, reduce the feedback, and bring it back to equilibrium." "Sounds great in theory," Jefferson said. "But if you're wrong, we're out of time." "We don't have another choice," Harrington said. "Chong, adjust the modulation frequency. Jefferson, prepare to recalibrate the diagnostics." Reynolds didn't move, his eyes locked on Harrington. "You're gambling with all of our lives." "And I'll take full responsibility," Harrington said. "But if we shut it down without understanding it, we might destroy something invaluable or provoke whoever sent it." After a tense moment, Reynolds gave a curt nod. "Do it." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic coordination. Harrington and Chong adjusted the diagnostic feeds, carefully dialing down the input signals. Jefferson monitored the artifact's energy levels, barking updates as the team worked against the clock. Summers deciphered the artifact's output, searching for confirmation that their adjustments were having an effect. Finally, the energy levels began to stabilize. The artifact's blinding light dimmed, its surface returning to the iridescent glow that had first captured their attention. The alarms fell silent, replaced by a low hum that resonated through the facility. The team exhaled collectively, the tension dissipating but not disappearing entirely. "It worked," Chong said, leaning back in his chair. "For now." Harrington turned to Reynolds, his expression unreadable. "This artifact is trying to communicate with us. We need to figure out what it wants, and fast." "This is just the beginning." Reynolds nodded grimly. "Then let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." The shimmering portal emitted a low, resonant hum, casting the desert sand in a pale, otherworldly light. The artifact, now stable, pulsed gently, its purpose clear. It was an invitation. Major Reynolds stood with his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the portal, as if willing it to reveal its secrets. "You're saying this thing wants us to step through?" "Just like that." Dr. Harrington adjusted his glasses, his excitement barely contained. "It's not random. The signal, the artifact, the portal, they're all connected. This is a controlled environment. Whoever sent it designed this for interaction. Jefferson snorted, hefting a bulky tool case onto the ground. Interaction? Or a trap? Either way, I'm guessing we don't have much of a choice. We do, Reynolds said sharply. And the choice is to stay alive. Stepping into an alien construct without knowing what's on the other side is suicide. It's a risk, Summers interjected, his voice calm but firm. But the signal wasn't hostile. It's complex, layered, and, based on the patterns we've studied, purposeful. If this portal is the next step, I believe it's meant for collaboration. Elliot Chong leaned on his monitor, still typing even as he spoke. I've been running simulations on the portal's energy output. It's stable, at least for now. But if we don't engage soon, we might lose the chance to find out what's on the other side. Reynolds turned to Harrington. You're absolutely certain this is worth the risk? Harrington met his gaze, unwavering. If we don't take this step, we'll regret it forever. This is first contact on a scale we never imagined. We have to know. Minutes later, the team was suited up, outfitted with gear designed for extreme environments, and armed with devices Jefferson had rigged to handle the unknown. The tension was palpable as they approached the portal. Each man, carrying the weight of humanity's, first leaped into the truly alien. The portal's surface shimmered as Harrington reached out, his hand hesitating for a fraction of a second before passing through. He gasped, then stepped forward, vanishing into the light. One by one, the others followed, until only Reynolds remained. His jaw tightened as he cast a final glance back at the facility. Then he stepped through. The transition was seamless, almost anticlimactic. One moment, Reynolds was in the desert, and the next, he stood in a massive chamber that defied comprehension. The walls seemed alive, pulsating with faint, bioluminescent light. Machinery, organic and mechanical, interwove seamlessly, forming a structure that felt both ancient and advanced. What is this place? Jefferson whispered, his voice uncharacteristically reverent. It's a station, Summers said, his gaze darting around as he took in the alien architecture. A hub of some kind. Harrington moved forward, his scanner beeping softly. The energy signatures matched the artifact. This is the source. The signal originated here. A faint clicking sound echoed through the chamber, drawing their attention. Emerging from the shadows was a figure, tall, insectoid, with iridescent carapace plates that shimmered like the artifact's surface. It moved with a deliberate grace, its many eyes reflecting the light. The creature paused, tilting its head as if studying them. Then, in a series of fluid motions, it gestured to a panel embedded in the wall. It's communicating, Summers said, stepping forward cautiously. Stay back, Reynolds ordered, his hand resting on his sidearm. Harrington ignored the tension, his focus on the alien. We have to try. He approached the panel, where a series of symbols began to materialize, glowing faintly. Chong joined him, quickly analyzing the symbols. It's similar to the patterns in the signal. Give me a second to translate. The alien remained motionless, its gaze shifting between the humans. After a tense moment, Chong spoke again. I think it's asking for help. Jefferson raised an eyebrow. Help with what? Harrington gestured at the room around them. This station is failing. Look at the systems, the lights, the power fluctuations. It's barely holding together. Summers nodded. If this place collapses, it might sever whatever connection it has to the rest of its network. That could explain why they sent the signal. It's a distress call. Reynolds frowned, his instincts warring with the evidence in front of him. And if we fix this thing, what's to stop them from turning on us? We don't know their intentions, Harrington admitted, but their actions so far suggest desperation, not aggression. If we help them, it could establish trust. Reluctantly, Reynolds nodded. Fine, but we do this on our terms. The team got to work. Jefferson and Chong focused on stabilizing the station's core systems, using tools they had brought, and improvising with the alien technology. Summers continued to decode the aliens' instructions, acting as a bridge between the two species. Harrington monitored the overall situation, piecing together a picture of what the station once was. Reynolds remained on guard, his eyes never leaving the alien, who watched their efforts silently. Hours passed, the tension mounting as the station's core began to stabilize. Finally, Jefferson wiped sweat from his brow and stepped back. That should do it. For now, anyway. The alien stepped forward, emitting a series of clicks and gestures that Summers interpreted as gratitude. Harrington smiled, relief washing over him. We did it. Before anyone could respond, a new hum filled the chamber. The walls lit up, revealing a vast network of pathways extending into the distance. The station had come alive, its systems restored. Reynolds eyed the alien warily. Now what? Summers studied the alien's gestures. It's offering us something in return. Knowledge, I think. A beam of light descended from the ceiling, forming a swirling array of symbols and images that filled the room. It was a cascade of information, a glimpse into the alien species' history, technology, and culture. As the team absorbed the moment, Harrington's voice broke the silence. This is just a beginning. We've made contact, but the journey ahead will define what it means to be human in a universe so much larger than we imagined. Reynolds nodded, his expression softening. Then let's make it count.